the writing and the gags. How on earth do you collate all these gags?
To start with, I think there's definitely two distinct kinds of comedians. Two kinds of comedians. There's the creative writing comedian, the people who write their own stuff, and then there's the performer. There's the people who can perform. And they're not necessarily the same, no. I know, I want to know by myself. I write some of my stuff, some of it, and a lot of it is ad-libbed. So you trust your mind. I've stood on the stage many times and heard myself telling jokes I've never heard of.
Wow.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So are you telling me that when you're on stage...
Well, there's more than one person in here, isn't there? There's more than one person in everybody's mind. There's more than one person. So somebody is working away there. And many times I stand and I go, I don't know what I've said. But it's... and I was, that was quite good there. In fact, I have... usually it's the keyboard player or the drummer. We give them a notebook. And when I go... And they write it down, and I got books, haven't I? Books of ad libs.
So you're very methodical about that, aren't you? You remember what you've said.
You don't forget a good ad lib, because if you do forget it, you never can't remember it again. So because sometimes you're on, you're in fifth gear. When you're motoring, when you're really on a roll, you're in fifth gear, and you're really. It's all going. You don't really know what you're saying. It's just happening.
And what do you think that is, Ken? Is that adrenaline? Do you have a kind of heightened intelligence when you're performing?
Well, it's being a comedian. It's being a comedian and comeding. No, it's just. A comedian has to be part orator, part speaker, part poet, as I say, because a lot of the time you're speaking in poetry, you're talking in pictures, and some of the time you're a singer, and you sing a joke. That's another thing to do with timing. You sing a joke like Frank Sinatra or Perry Como would phrase a song. You phrase a joke the same way. So you sing a joke.
You're very scientific about the comedy, aren't you? It seems to me.
Not at all. No.
Oh, okay.
Nothing,
I'm wrong.
No. I was once described in just a publicity thing as a slide rule comic, but no, nothing like that. No. What happened was before I was a professional comedian, I was a salesman. You see, early on, knocking on doors. Good morning, madam. Could I interest you in a bucket? And then after that, selling all sorts of things. So, that's being a salesman. You keep books on what you've sold that week and how many and where. So when I came into show business, it seemed logical to write down a keyword for each joke you told, and then whether it was good, very good, bad, leave it out, try again. Wrong wording, polish it up. And as I whizzed around all the different theatres, from Glasgow to Finsbury Park, from Finsbury Park to all the other theatres all over the country, I kept notebooks, which I still have. And I still keep copious notebooks with my thoughts about how the show's gone.
So do you do a particular show for a particular part of the country?
You try to mould your material. Some gags, no, you can't do it all, but you try to have some gags to suit people down in Cornwall and say, I've never been abroad before like this. This is, have you stopped cannibalism down here? Does it still go on, does it? A lot of witchcraft, I know that, I can see that. Mm-hmm.
And you lace music into your show, don't you? Do you do that so the audience can have a breather?
A breather?
Well, because you've got to stop laughing at some point.
Go outside for a smoke, you mean?
No, stay, but have a rest from laughing.
Have a rest?
Which is exhausting, especially in your show. It's so rapid fire.
Can't let an audience have a rest. If you get them there, keep them there. Keep them there. That's another lesson you learn, you see. In the old days, when we used to have variety, there'd be about 10 acts on the bill. I remember playing Ardwick Hippodrome in Manchester, and there were two men who had gone before me, and they were South African gentlemen, but they were rather large, put it that way.
Yes.
Rotund, and they played ukuleles. And when they finished, said, how you gonna keep on down on the farm after taking Parry, Max and Harry Nesbitt? And they went like a storm. They absolutely marmalised them. They were wonderful. I'm standing at the side stage going, oh dear. I'm going to follow that. By Jove. I went on, and it couldn't have been better. It couldn't have been easier, because they'd left the audience there. And all I had to do was try and go on and keep them there. The easiest thing in the world is to follow a good act. The hardest thing is to follow a duff act. If you're following somebody who's died, then yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about time, Ken.
Time?
Everybody knows that you and time...
Oh, time.
...is a tricky old subject.
No. Time and Ken Dodd have always had a battle. Yeah. Oh, you mean the shows?
Yeah.
Well, that I don't do long shows. I give good value, but No, I don't. It's just enough.
Don't you?
No. One thing about my shows, you always go home in the daylight, which I think is safer for everybody. And
it's just the next day.
And if you can't get a taxi, you can always get a lift off a passing milk float. They're here. No, what happened is I'm enjoying myself too much. You see, I'm there. It's like a party. You start off by inviting the people to the party, then you make sure everybody's having a good time. You all have a good laugh. Well, and then all of a sudden you think, well, you don't want to go home early and be a party pooper, do you?
And do young comics come and ask for advice from you? Have you ever had that situation?
Yes, many times.
What do you tell them? You
tell them advice, not that they ever take it, because you know yourself, advice is the easiest thing to give and the hardest thing to take. And nothing more disappointing than spend an hour giving somebody advice and then find out a month later they're doing exactly the same thing. But the best advice you can give to anybody starting in the business is there's one thing. You want to be a comedian? Say it. I want... Now, you're a young girl coming in, a young fella coming in. You know, what do you want?
I want to be a comedian.
That's it. You are a comedian. But you've got to want to. You've got to really want to. Do you really want to be one? Really? Do you want to with every fibre of your being? Do you go to sleep thinking about it? Do you wake up in the morning thinking about it? Do you go through the day thinking, oh, gosh, I just do that line, get the line right. No, I know what I'll do. I'll go on and I'll fall into the orchestra pit. No, won't do that. No, I'll go on the stage and I'll shave my head and paint my head. You know, you have to do this. You have to live, eat and sleep being an entertainer. And the one thing, the most precious thing you'll ever have will be your enthusiasm. The wanting, the energy, the enthusiasm to want to be an entertainer. And if you want to be an entertainer, you are an entertainer and you will be an entertainer.
So you do the job you love the most, don't you?
Yeah, this is the job I love most. I think it's the only job that I really, really love. It's not a job anyway. It's just me.
You're a lucky man.
Blessed. I used to say I was lucky, but as you go through life, you realise you make your own luck. So now, I'm definitely blessed.
Tell me, Ken, do you seek anyone's approval?
Yes, very much so.
Who?
Mostly the audience. I've thought about it, mostly, and then who do they represent? You know, who do they represent? Almost certainly it's your parents. Almost certainly you're showing off in the front room, putting your mother's hat on and pretending, acting silly. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Comedy orchestra.